you start to train your mind to say, to like, here's the fear, but this is what I do no matter what. Like, here's the fear, but this is what I do right away. Like, you know, like there's never been a time when I've been like, I'm scared, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to speak. Like never. Like every time I'm like, I'm scared and I still speak no matter what.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inspiring Talks. I'm your host, Taiman Gurung, and I am also a senior at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, majoring in communications with an emphasis on organization and leadership. I've always wanted to start a podcast, and I was looking for a reason, like why should I start a podcast? And then in October of last year, I took the courage. I ordered everything, like this mic, this setup right here, this recording device, and these headphones. I ordered everything, but I still had that hesitation of, should I start a podcast or should I not start? Who am I to start a podcast? And then I was like, okay, I will just do it. I have to do it because I need to do it for my project that I'm gonna do for my school, my capstone project. This is part of it. I'm recording for my capstone project, but not that just for that, but I'm recording so I can upload daily, so I can inspire and motivate whoever is listening to my inspiring talk. So today, I have a very, very special guest coming out on this podcast. His name is Juan Cangas, and I've known him for almost 8.5 years, since I was a freshman in high school. And the first time I've seen him, he used to call me Timon. When my name is really Taiman, he called me Timon for the first 2.5 years, which is okay. And then I got to know him a little bit better since my junior year in high school. I used to go to this club called the Thrive Leadership Club, which I'll be talking about a little bit with my guest here today, because he's one of the founder of the Thrive Leadership Club, and now I work for the Thrive Leadership Club. It's like an after-school club, and we work together, and we inspire and motivate the students together. So Juan, he is a motivator. He's an inspirer. And I thought to myself, who could I interview? Who could I do a research project about that is in my life? And that was Coach Cangas. I call him Coach Cangas because he's been my coach, and he's also my mentor, even though he's my colleague right now. So I'm going to quickly read his bio, and I'm going to cut to the scene where he is already in this room. So it's not magic, people. It is just editing, okay? Juan has spent most of his life pursuing one question: why do some people succeed in life while others fail? Juan had to find his own motivation to succeed as a young Latino teen wrestling with the challenges of life. His drive to overcome barriers and desire to make his mother proud helped him become the first person in his family to attend college. Juan is an authority in youth leadership development with over 6 years. I know in his website here it says 6 years, but really it's been more than 11 years of experience inspiring students from all walks of life. So today, after this podcast, if you would like to book Coach Cangas, you can book him at his website. I believe it is www.juancangas.com. You can book him. He can come out to your school, to your university, wherever you want him. He will be there if you book him through with his website. And I am really, really excited. No matter who you are, if you are listening or if you are watching and listening at the same time, thank you very much. I promise you today, you will get to take away something that will be valuable that you did not know before in your life. You will add value to your life. So I promise you, just stay on, listen to this conversation, because the guest that I'm going to have always, when I'm with him, and when I'm having conversation, like when I'm with him at lunch or when I'm with him at dinner, when I'm having conversations with him, he always is teaching me something new. Well, maybe because he's my mentor, I learned so much from him, but I believe he will also be doing the same thing here today. So listen, tune in. Thank you for being here in the Inspiring Talk Show. I'm going to roll my intro now. Thank you for being here, Coach.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm glad
There's the little applause.
all the audience.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was your first one, so I'm the number
Yeah.
one.
Yes.
I'm the first.
Number one. I don't know.
I'm proud of you for like I know you've been talking about doing this for a little bit, so I'm proud of you to just kind of get everything situated and you finally pulled the trigger and are doing it. It's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me today.
Yeah. I always wanted to do it, so I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do it. See how it goes. If it fails, it fails.
Yeah, you just got to go out there, you know?
Yeah, and it's the perfect option because I have to do like a study, like a research study or a project. And then people previously in the communication department of that same thing, they had done podcasts. So I was like, okay, I'll do a podcast. And then,
Yeah. And you'll and I think one of my friends started doing a podcast here like a year and a half ago, and he had been wanting to do it for a long time, but he finally pulled the trigger and when he started doing it, and you could tell not just that he got better at it, but he started to just be more interested in kind of discover some things about himself that he hadn't discovered yet. It's because, you know, you're having conversations with people and you're kind of just like coming up with ideas. So I think this is a really cool thing.
yeah. And I started listening to podcasts a while ago. I listened to On Purpose the most when I work out. Jay Shetty, On Purpose.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, I listen to that one the most. And yeah, this is right now. I feel like it's cool hearing my own voice in the
It
headphone.
sounds like a podcast.
Yeah. So today, I wanted to. Well, yes, congratulations for being the first,
The number one.
the number one. I always wanted you to be number one. So
The Juan.
yeah. So my study that I'm doing is I have to basically tell my professor or show my professor this podcast, and my topic or my study is how does one become a youth speaker or a leadership facilitator, because that's what you are right now. You're a professional one.
Yeah.
And then I realized as I was coming up with this topic, I realized in college, when you go to college, there's no path you can take. Like if you want to be a speaker and a facilitator or a career coach, there's no path you can take in college. Like for example, you engineers, doctors, you know, there's classes they can take, and then once they get that degree, they go off and they apply, and then they become engineers and doctors. So that's why today I wanted to kind of ask you some questions and then figure out kind of the why, how, and the what of the speaking business, or how you became a speaker. So my first question, I want to start out with the why, and then we'll go on to the how and the what. And I got this format from a speaker called, I think you know him, Simon Sinek. He's the person who wrote the why. Yeah, he wrote the why, and then he has this thing called the golden circle, where how great leaders, they start with the why and then they go from inwards to outwards. The why, the how, and the what. So I wanted to start with the why. So why did you want to become a professional speaker?
So I was actually just talking to someone today about it. So when I was in high school, you know, some of my story was, you know, I made some mistakes when I was in middle school. And so right around the time I started high school, I was just trying to get, I was just trying to start like a new life. You know, I was trying to get a new mindset, learn some new lessons. I was just trying to get like a new environment around me. And so I kind of let go a lot of my friends that were in middle school, and I didn't really have a lot of friends or good people around me. And so it was really out of coincidence. One time it was like my 14th year birthday. I remember this. And my uncle sent me like these 3 burned CDs from this guy named Tony Robbins. And like, I'd never heard of this, right? And it's like, it wasn't even the original CDs. It's just like 3 burned CDs. And so I started listening to them, and, you know, Tony Robbins is like he's more than a speaker. He's, you know, like professional development coach, personal development, and one of the best. And so I started listening to it, and I loved it. And I think it was because it was the right time. Like, had I heard it, in middle school, I would have been like, this is stupid, or I wouldn't have listened to it. But I think it was because I was searching for a new way to think, a new way to act, new environments, new people around me. And I listened to those 3 CDs like over and over and over again. I think I must have listened to them for like the whole year, like my freshman year. And then finally I told my uncle, he asked me like, hey, did you like those 3 CDs? And I was like, yeah, I love them. Like I've learned so much. I play them all the time continuously. And so he's like, oh, great. Well, there's more CDs. And I was like, really? I'm like, how many more CDs are there? Because I only thought there was just these 3. And, I never asked him for more because I just thought these were the only ones. And he's like, oh, yeah, he's got like 27 more. Like, it's like a 30-day program. And I was like, what? That's awesome. And then I was like, can you burn them for me, please? Like, and he burned the CDs, all of them, sent me all. And I felt like I had like, won the lottery or something. Cause I was just playing these 3 CDs over and over again and just learning so much from them. And I was like, wow, there's like 27 more lessons that I could learn about how to be successful. And the thing is, I applied a lot of the things that I learned. And it helped me be successful. It helped me graduate high school, be one of the first people in my family to go to college, get a full ride scholarship to go to college, graduate college. So it served its purpose. Like I needed a good environment, some place I could be fed, like to help my personal growth. And that's what those CDs did for me. And so when I was searching for what I wanted to do with my life, after college, so I graduated college, and I always thought I wanted to do that. Like I wanted to be like Tony Robbins, I wanted to be a speaker, to inspire, to help, to motivate, to teach. I just never thought it'd be possible. Like, cause I always doubted, you always doubt yourself. It's easier to believe in things that you can see. And I had never seen like a real life speaker, especially that looked like me, like I'd seen them on TV or heard them, to Tony Robbins, but it's different when you see someone like literally in front of you doing the thing, and even more when you have a relationship with that person, because then they're real. Because they're always like superheroes when you meet somebody that is doing what you want to do. Yes. And so after college, so I always knew I wanted to do it. Like since high school, I was like, I think this would be cool. I just never really told anybody that I really wanted to do that, or never really like acknowledged it to myself. I was always just in the back of my mind, like this would be cool if one day this would work out, but I didn't really pursue it as much until after college, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was like, well, you know what? Like, why don't I just try to work with students? And I wasn't even thinking about like being a speaker. I was just like, maybe I could just work with students and, help them out. And so I started working with students. And on the side, I the story I met my mentor, Ernesto, and that was one of the first times I really started to believe like, oh, maybe I could do this one day, like it planted the seed, but I didn't fully believe it. I was like, until I started doing it a little by little. But I think, the why is it when I was in high school, it really helped me to be to hear some inspiring words from people around me, to create a good environment that helped me grow. And so I wanted to do that for other young people. I wanted to help create an environment where they help them grow, where they were learning, and not just learning like math and science, and those things are important, but like learning, how do you grow? How do you set goals? How do you ask yourself new questions? How do you think in a different way than everybody around you? How do you realize that the circumstances around your life are not going to define you, but your decisions, you get to make your choices on what you're going to focus on every day. I feel like if I hadn't had that myself, I wouldn't have been able to have been successful. And so I wanted to create that for other students, In essence, like what Thrive Club was like those 3 CDs. Thrive Club was those 3 CDs because, what I got, like if Thrive Club existed when I was in high school, I would have gone to Thrive Club. That's where I would have got fed. But there was no Thrive Club in my high school, so it was like, well, my Thrive Club was in my car driving from school to work, listening to the those things from Tony Robbins. So yeah.
Yep. And we're talking about Thrive right now. To those of you who don't know what, well, you wouldn't know what Thrive is, but it's an after school club here in Omaha, where we both actually work, and that's where I met him actually, and that's how he kind of ended up becoming my mentor, and my path to becoming a speaker and a facilitator, just like him, started because of that Thrive Club. That was great. Thank you for that answer, Coach. So another question is it important to have like a why or a reason if somebody wants to be a speaker? Like what I'm saying is, can somebody just be a speaker if they want to be a speaker? Like,
yeah, I think you can be a speaker and not have like a deep purpose behind it, because there's some mechanics behind it. And but if you want to be the type of individual, especially like in our work, that really makes an impact and not just income, then I think the purpose has to be behind it. And because whenever anybody asks me like, hey, I want to do what you do, I want to be a facilitator or a speaker, I always ask them like, why? And sometimes it's like, well, I see you on stage and I think it'd be cool for people to look up to me and things like that. And that's it's good. I mean, it's not that it's wrong to want kind of affirmation from other people, to make money. Like there's nothing wrong with that, but that can't be your sole purpose. Not only because you can't be successful, but because you're not going to make as big of an impact, because your intention matters. I've always thought that like why you're doing something, it matters and it's going to have an effect. And also at a certain point, if you're successful, like if you make the money, if you're on the stages, if you're doing this full time, if you don't have a purpose, it'll be hard to keep going, because most people don't believe this, but money doesn't buy you happiness. You've always heard that. Everybody's always heard that. And there's this great speaker named Les Brown, and he says, I love what he says. He's like, money doesn't buy you happiness, but everybody should find out for themselves.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Because it's a thing that you can't teach, you can only experience. Like making money at the thing you love and then realizing, oh, I could still be unhappy and making money and successful at the thing I love. And that's the worst kind of failure. There's two failures. One is you fail because you don't get the thing you want. And the worst kind of failure is you get the thing you want and you still feel like a failure. And so if somebody doesn't have a deep purpose going into this, and not every career requires this, you could be like an electrician and not be like super passionate about it, but I think any type of work where you're working directly with people, like any human services, I think there has to be a deep purpose behind it, especially if you're going to do it for a long time, because at a certain point, at a certain point, you're just going to like, if you're successful, but you don't have a deep purpose, it's going to get to you, like mentally you're going to be a little weary.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. That makes sense. And that's what I think too, or I don't know if, I think there are like different kinds of mindset that people have, and I have that same mindset where, if I do something, or if I need to do something, I need to know why, or I need to have a reason. I just feel like that's how my mindset works.
And and that's a new way that I've been thinking about it, because sometimes the reason if you look at most literature, or most speakers and things like that, when they talk about your why, like if you listen to, Eric Thomas, he's like, a lot of times he'll talk about your why. Like, hey, you got to have a strong enough reason, because when things get difficult, then you got to remember your why. And I think that's true. But your question was, can you be successful without having a why? And I know you can, because I've met speakers that are not really that passionate about. They're mainly in it for the money. They're mainly in it for, like, to feel famous.
Okay.
And they're successful. But you meet them and they're like not the type of people you want to hang out with, And so I'm like, well, they don't have like a super strong reason. They're still successful because they're just like, some people are just grinders. They're just going to grind no matter what. But then at the end of the day, they're a certain person on stage, but they're not the same person. And like, when you meet them, you're like, oh, I don't know, you're not like a good person, Like, I don't really want to hang out with you. Like, you're actually not the same person that you are on stage. And I feel like that's the ultimate failure, is to succeed on the outside, but then in the inside to be like, to be contrary to like what you're showing on stage, And so I think if you have a purpose that's deeper than just money and fame or just being recognized, then when you succeed, it's like, it's more meaningful, And when people meet you too, they're like, oh, you're not just this pretend guy on stage. Like, who you are on stage is who you are in real person, in real life.
Yes. And that's kind of the reason why I wanted to start off with the why, because I believe to everyone that's listening and viewing this podcast, I think, like you said, no matter what type of field you go to, you got to have a why. You got to have a deeper meaning. But you can also go on. You can also do things. You can also be successful without the why. But you're inside.
I think life will be more meaningful if you have a deeper purpose for doing things.
Doing things. Okay. So now we got the why. Let's dive into the how of becoming a speaker. And this is what I've kind of wanted to focus on for this podcast, the how, because like I said earlier, in college, like I've been part of the communication department at UNO for almost 5 years now, because I have a 5-year full ride scholarship, and I've been there for 5 years. And I'm not saying college is bad or anything. I've learned great things inside communication, inside the department. Like, there's public speaking classes, there is like speeches you can do, there's group projects, you learn a lot of real life stuff that you can apply to actual in real life, like interviewing skills and everything. But I've never learned like how to be a speaker, or how to get a gig, or how to do all that. I've learned all of that from you working outside from school. So I wanted to ask you, how did you start? How did you start becoming a professional speaker?
I mean, so I started, like in 2000 and I think it was like 2010, when I first, no, 2011. No, right. Yeah, 2010. So what ended up happening was, I got connected with a speaking group called Cool Speak, and it's a group of speakers, a youth engagement company. And so they, they were the first people that I connected with, that were like where I met the speakers that were doing this full time. And through them, I got my first engagement, which was actually at my first, my high school. The very first paid gig I ever did was in my old high school, which I thought was pretty cool. It's just like, I mean, some things like you go after, but some things go after you, And I really feel like speaking, facilitating, it really was something. I mean, it wasn't easy to get, but I do feel like I was kind of meant for it. Some things had to happen, like you can work really hard, but there's some certain things sometimes in your life that you gotta kind of get lucky, I mean, you can believe in luck, but I believe in God. And so, I really feel like God was working behind the scenes, because I met these guys, Ernesto and Chu. They just founded this company called Cool Speak. They invite me to a training in Las Vegas. and they're like, hey, we're gonna invite all these people that are interested in facilitating or speaking. We'll go out, we'll train you, and they were gonna do like auditions. So you'd like do like a 3-minute speech in front of like these professional speakers that do this for a living. And I was so nervous, but I ended up going because I was just like, well, if I don't go, then then I'm never gonna know, then I'll just be stuck, and I can stay where I was. So I went, and I went to the training. I did the audition, and then for like 2 months, I didn't hear anything from them. And then 2 months to go by, and I'm like, man, this sucks. Like, I went to Las Vegas, spent a bunch of, spend money because I had to buy my own plane ticket, my own hotel room, stuff like that. And like, I'm like, I didn't get anything from it. I'm still like stuck. I was working for Coca-Cola at the time. And then I'll never forget the day. It was like 7:00 at night. I was still working, and I was just getting done like going to one of the convenience stores. That was one of my stores that I would check inventory. And I was leaving, and I get a phone call from Ernesto, and he's like, hey, are you still interested in being a facilitator for us? And I was like, yeah, I'm still interested. He's like, okay, well, we got your first gig. And he's like, you're not going to believe where it's at. I'm like, where? He's like, in Grand Island. You're in your old high school. You're going to be going down there doing a 5-day program. And I was like, what? And so I think it was like, I didn't have a lot of skills. I mean, I have very, very little skills, but I had a lot of passion, which comes from your purpose, right? If you're doing it for the right reasons, and you're not just doing it for yourself, like there's some insights that come. And so I went. I don't think I did a very good job. Like, I did average, or like, if you throw anybody to do anything new, like podcasting or like that, like they're just still figuring things out. But I didn't totally bomb too, so. That after that retreat, I was like, okay, like I think I can do this, I think I can do this at least part-time. And so, for like the next 7 years, I pretty much did like part-time speaking. I would work for the foundation, and I did Thrive Club, but like actual speaking, I was only part-time. I'd only do it on the side. And then 2017 is where I took the leap. That's where I was like, all right, we're going to do this, or, we're either going to start the podcast, do the thing, like, or it's not going to work. And so there I learned that there's a big difference between the art of speaking. So like the skill, you being able to just give a good presentation or facilitate a great program, and then the business of speaking. And a lot of people, when they first start out, they just focus all on just the art, the speaking, which is good because it's necessary, right? You got to get to a certain level of skill level in speaking. Otherwise, like, it doesn't matter, But very few people really focus on the business side, even when they're really good. And one thing that just kind of opened up my eyes when I went full time is I would see people, and I was like, oh, like you can be an average speaker, but have phenomenal like business skills, and you could be one of the best, like one of the most requested speakers, or you could be one of the best like speakers skill wise and story wise or presentation style. But if you don't have the business side of it, you will never reach your potential. And I just seen it like night and day. Like, for example, one example was when we went out like in 2018, we went out to go see this speaker called Josh Chip, who, is one of the top, I would say 5 most there's like most in need speakers. I wouldn't even say like best. I'm just saying like he's probably most in need. People like request him, most requested, like top 5 most requested youth speakers in the whole country. And I'd never heard him speak in person. Do you remember this when we went out to Kearney?
Yeah.
To the group.
That one place. Yeah.
The one place.
Yeah.
Whose their mission was to fight.
To overcome
diversity.
To overcome diversity. Yeah, I still remember that.
We went to Kearney, Nebraska, and we went to this hotel room, and it was this convention for youth, young people. And let's just put it out there, like me and you were the only one, like people of color, like everybody else was white. And then we're reading through the mission statements, like, hold on, our mission is to overcome diversity. And we're like, maybe they missed the obstacles, like overcome obstacles. No, but it seemed like it was like, we're going to overcome diversity.
Yeah.
So when I heard him there, you know, I mean, Josh Chip is like a phenomenal speaker. But I've seen better speakers. Subjectively, I mean, everybody has their own opinion, but nobody beats him, in my eyes, with how the business side of it, like the marketing, the product development. Like he is a genius at that thing, and because of that, he's been able to basically like take his potential of what he is, you know, because you can, I mean, you can get really good at it, but maybe like it's like a basketball player, right? Like you can work on your skill and your craft and it's going to get better, but you're going to have like a ceiling, you know,
like a plateau.
Like a plateau. Yeah. Like, you know, not every basketball player has the potential to be as great as Michael Jordan, but you can be pretty good and you can make it to the NBA and you can get paid really well. Like that's still success, you know, but the thing that limits most people isn't actually the art, because if you do it long enough and you're continuously trying to get better, you will get better. So then those are the two distinctions that I always talk to speakers about, is like, hey, just as much as you're working on the art of speaking, you also got to work on like the business side, and that's continuous. And so I would say the art of it. I remember one time I got advice from a speaker, and this was when I was like barely starting out, and I seen the speaker. His name was Jimmy Cabrera. He was a great speaker, older like Latino dude, and I got his phone number, and I was gonna call him, and I was like, hey, what's the secret to speaking? Like, how can I be one of the best speakers, you know, in the future? And he said, the secret to speaking is speaking. I was like, what? I was like, what do you mean? Like, he's like, yeah, the only way you're going to get better at speaking is not by like thinking about it, not by sitting down and trying to write the best speech, you know, not by like planning everything out. The only way you're going to, I mean, those things help. You want to be prepared, but at a certain point, it's the reps, it's the shots, you know, it's taking that shot over and over and over again. And then there's things in between there that you can make you better. You know, like every time you present, like videotaping yourself to be able to, you know, give yourself criticism, asking others to give you criticism. But the very best way is just going out and doing it again and again and again and again. And at first it really sucks because you're going to suck, you know, and that's why, you know, people need that purpose, that why, because there's nothing worse. Like people's greatest fear, you know, one of the greatest fears that people have is public speaking. To be in a room full of 1,000 students and like they're not only like, so that the worst is not they're being bored. The worst is they like boo you, right? Like you suck so bad that they're like, get out of here, bro. Like you're wasting my time, you know? Yeah. And you're going to have that, you know, like the best speakers, they're going to bomb sometimes at the start. Even, you know, I mean, it happens, but I mean, it happens more often when you start out. So you got to have that purpose because it's humiliating. You know, you feel like crap whenever you don't do well. But if you have that purpose, if you know why you're doing it and it's deeper than just making money, then you're going to get through it. But there's nothing like putting yourself out there over and over and over again, and then doing things that you feel uncomfortable, you know, like, okay, you spoke to 25 students. Okay, now make it 50. Okay, now make it 100. Okay, now make it 1,000. You know, now make it 3,000. Like increasing that, but it doesn't even have to be an increase of numbers. It could be also like, okay, I did a speech. Now let me go do a workshop with 10 students and see if I can engage them at a deeper level. You know, okay, now let me talk to parents. Now let me talk to teachers. And every stage is like a little more uncomfortable because one of the things that can keep you from improving your craft, and this happens to a lot of speakers, is you get really comfortable with one of your talks. Like, for example, right now, my Real Decisions one is I'm pretty like I can deliver that on the spot. I don't need look over my notes and anything. Like I wake up, I can go and I can just do it, and I can do it at a very high level. Well, when you have a talk or a program that's very successful, you kind of just want to stay there because it's comfortable. It starts getting comfortable, right? The thing that was uncomfortable when I was uncomfortable now is comfortable. So the thing is, you're gonna want to challenge yourself, right? That like, okay, I know I got this. Now let me start working on another talk. Now that's hard. That's really, really hard because you got your talk. It hits home runs. It makes you successful. Now you're gonna have to create a new one that makes you feel like when you first started. Fumbling. I don't really know. Oh no, people didn't really like it. And so that's what makes great speakers is those that are able to do new things even when they have other things that are very successful. Because think about this. Think about if you become a speaker and you have your talk, and let's say from that talk, just that talk, you make, like enough to pay all your bills and live comfortably. Well, then what's going to make you say, well, I already got this talk. Let me just sell this like crazy, What's going to make you want to like get other programs or start new things, innovate, make new things happen that, or, start new like talks that maybe aren't as good. What's going to make that happen is your purpose, right? Your why. Like, well, I didn't just start this so I could do this one talk and just make money. Like I did this to make an impact. And times change, people change. I need to change. I need to change my messaging. I learned something, right? We're continuously learning and we're wanting to develop new things. Anthony Robbins has this great quote. He says, progress equals happiness.
Progress equals happiness.
Progress equals happiness. If you're not growing, if you're not moving forward in a certain direction, you start feeling like you're dying. And sometimes, even if you're successful, if you're not progressing, if you're not figuring out, okay, how am I moving forward? And that doesn't always mean that you're making more money or like that you're doing more work, but maybe if you're challenging yourself, like there's something about challenging yourself that brings out like life in you, and it creates new things for other people to enjoy, because if you got 2 bomb talks, you go to a client and then you can say, okay, I got these 2 talks, or I got these 2 programs, or I got these 3 programs. Which one is best fit for your students? And you can serve more people. I mean, you can make more money, but you can also serve more people,
That's true. And I was reminded because I was reading that book that you gave me about the money game with the Tony Robbins, and in that book it says repetition is the mother of all.
Repetition is the mother of skill.
And that's what I was when you were talking just right now. That's what I was thinking too, because when I first did the internship for Thrive, and then it was my turn to give like my first lesson, and I think I got like 10 to 15 minutes to talk. I was doing this hot air balloon, and then somebody recorded it in Snapchat, and I was looking like clips of that presentation between now and then. I'm like, how did I get from here to there? And then I was reading that book, and then I found out like, oh, I just kept on doing it because after I graduated high school, I kept on doing things with you and working for the Thrive Club and just repeating myself. And so if there's anyone out there who wants to be a speaker or a facilitator or just wants to improve their communication skills outside of college or outside of an educational environment, I would say just get a job where you can just do the same thing over and over again, or like speak or, communicate.
Just get opportunities to get up in front of people, I think that would be a great place to start. If you want to be specifically a speaker, like just go out and speak for free for a few years. Unless you've gotten a lot of skill, and you've had a lot of practice, it's going to take a few years where you go out and you just speak for free. And a lot of people don't want to do that. They're like, no, I want to get paid. Well, you're not going to get paid right away because you're not going to be good right away, But if you practice, and you start crafting that message, And then you also see you're like on a journey. You're like, okay, is this really what I want to do? You know, because you might think, I think one of the times, like sometimes we think certain things, certain jobs, are going to be like a certain experience. They're going to give us a certain experience, but then we try it out and we're like, actually, I didn't really like it, you know? Like we know we've had like interns that have come to Thrive or even with Cool Speak, you know, I've seen like people that wanted to be speakers and they joined and they tried it out, and there's no shame in like saying, actually, I changed my mind. I don't really, it doesn't, you know, this isn't really a good fit for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, over time, like you, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, so you've been through some good and some bad. So like, this is something that you really want to do, because everybody, when it's the idea of something, everybody likes the idea. But when you actually do it and you're up, you know, at 12 o'clock at night, and you got to get up at 5 for the summer camp, and you're on your 5th day, your second camp, and you're like, I feel like I'm just gonna die. And but you still figure out a way to get it, you know, get up and serve and produce. That's when you know, when you put in the work. But I mean, if I were to say, yeah, just go out and get yourself in front of groups, because it is fearful. I think for most people, you know, like I still get scared of getting up in front of groups. But I think it's the consistent, not only developing the skill, but consistently showing yourself, like, even though I'm scared, I'm still going to do it. You know, like you start to train your mind to say, like, here's the fear, but this is what I do no matter what. Like, here's the fear, but this is what I do right away. Like, you know, like there's never been a time when I've been like, I'm scared, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to speak. Like never. Like every time I'm like, I'm scared, and I still speak no matter what. Even in like, you know, I've been in situations where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, this audience, you know, but like there's something about, especially when you like fly somewhere, now you're going to do it. Like you have to, you know, like when you get that signature, that signed contract, like it's done. Like you better figure that out, you know? And so it forces you, because I think sometimes I think, well, let me just prepare and get everything ready, and then I'll hit, you know, like that button, like on the podcast, right? Like I'll just hit that button and then we'll start everything. But it's speaking is, you got to start doing it before you have the cameras, before you have the microphone or the right headset. You just start speaking and moving forward, and then you get, you know, the headphones and the things, you know, and then you start adding to it and improving. That's at least that's how it's worked for me. So yeah, I say just get out there, you know, challenge yourself with, you know, give yourself, if you're barely starting out, I always say, you know, you should work on booking a gig for free. Like just shooting an email to some of your teachers in the past and saying, hey, thinking about speaking, you know, can I come out to your classroom and take like 30 minutes to, you know, do my talk with your students. And I would do that, videotape it, see how it goes, see what kind of feedback you get, and then do it again, you know, and then do it again, and then increase the numbers, you know. Maybe it's not a classroom, maybe it's like a whole class, like all the freshman class, and then maybe it's the whole high school, middle school. But yeah.
So it's like going step by step, like with any other career or job, you go step by step. But the thing about speaking is, this is why I get scared. Well, I get scared of thinking about speaking, is because like you have to do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. There's nobody else.
There's nobody else.
You're right there with a microphone in front of everybody. Yeah. But you know, you build up to that. I mean, there's some people that like right out the gates, you know, and everybody has different skill levels and they all start differently. But I would say, as you're on this journey to improve your craft and your skills, you're going to get more opportunities, right? So like you call someone and you do great, you know, free, like it's a free gig. And then they're like, oh, you should, you know, they recommend you to somewhere else. And then you do something for them, and then they recommend you to someone else. And then pretty soon you find a person that you're like, you know, once you start getting to a level, you're like, okay, I'm going to start charging. Like, I think I'm good enough because I've gotten some good feedback. I've seen other speakers, and I'm to that level where I can start charging. I remember I had an engagement like in 2015, And it's been about 5 years I've been speaking for free, but also like, you know, I've been charging a little bit. But I hadn't charged. It was all through Cool Speak. They'd always say, hey, can you do this gig? And we've already contracted out for you. And I remember I went to go speak in Lincoln. They asked me to come out and do like a 10-minute talk at the Capitol building just for like this small group of people. They were like, these students were getting recognized for like the Hispanic Heritage Month. And so I speak for 10 minutes, you know, it's free. And then there's a teacher there that's from this place called Lexington, Nebraska. And she contacts me a few weeks later and she's like, hey, I heard you speak, you know, and it's like 10 minutes. So I didn't even like share any of my story, but maybe it was just like my energy, or I don't know what it was, but I didn't share anything about my story. And she's like, would you come out to Lexington High School and come out and speak? And I was like, yeah. And then she asked me, because I was going to do it for free, because I was scared to charge. Cool Speak would charge, so I would still get paid through them, but I never could there's like something weird. I just didn't feel very confident that I could charge, you know? But then she asked me the question, well, how much do you charge? And I was going to be like free. I mean, I'm doing this for free, but I was like, well, she asked the question, so that means she probably got some money. And I think I was like $500, you know, thinking like she's probably going to be like, oh, that's crazy. Like, you know, who do you think you are? Because, you know, you have all these doubts. And, you know, I was like, if she says, you know, like, hey, this is too much, I'll be like, oh, don't worry, you know, I could $100, whatever. And she's like, oh, yeah, you know, we could do that. And then I was like, dang it. I should have asked for 1,000, you know? Which is actually a good tip. Like, if you're constantly saying a price if you're a speaker and people are just really like, yeah, that's no problem, you should probably charge more. There should be a little resistance. That's when you know that you're charging a little bit better pricing. So I go out. This is the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. It's going to be like 1,000 students. You know, the whole gymnasium is going to be full. And I'm so nervous. Like, I'm driving down there. It's like a 3-hour drive. And I'm just like, what did I get myself into? Like, I can't do this. Like, this is too much, you know? Because I hadn't spoken to that large of crowd. That was one of the largest crowds I was going to speak to. And then I was getting paid too, you know? And this was like money that I had gone out and got myself, you know? It feels different when you go on and get your own money. And then I go and... I mean, I was so scared, but I mean, when they introduced me, I was just like, let's go, you know? And then I just took that microphone and just zoned out and did my thing. And that was one of those turning points for me, because I was like, when I left there, I was like, I had spoken before and I'd done some Cool Speaks gigs as well. And I'd been doing Thrive. But I don't know why, like that one was just, I just remember leaving and being like, oh, I can do this.
Is the whole school there?
The whole school.
The whole school.
Yeah, it was the whole school. I'd done my speech before, but that's where like it came together. Like it was just like I'd done certain parts here, certain parts there, but that was the one where like it all like it just kind of like was my culminating like capstone project. Like it just all things came together. I gave the best speech I'd ever given up to that point. The crowd, like the students loved it. The client was really happy. You know, I got paid. My first thing, you know, it's one of my first gigs that I got myself. And I just remember driving back and I was like, I can do it. Like it was like in that moment, I was just like, it was like a little switch that just like, it was just kind of crazy because I've been working with students for like 5 years, you know, and I've been speaking in front of students. But this was like, it was like, you know, you go through these stages of speaking and you're like, you're speaking, but you still are doubtful. Like, am I good enough? Can I really do this, you know? And that was I just remember like, it was 2015. I was like, I can do this. Like, I can do this full time one day. You know, and it wouldn't be 2 years later until I actually went full time. But that was the seed. Like, I literally can remember thinking, "Oh, I can do this really well." Yeah,
I feel like that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, you need You need to go out there and
Yeah.
because I could have bombed. It could have been really bad. You know, I was really nervous. I was like so nervous, man. I was like going in and out of the restroom. I was just, I was just like about to, like, I had spoken to a large crowd too, my own middle school, but I didn't get paid there. Like I wasn't expecting. So like when you're doing free things, it feels a little different than when you're charging your money. Like, cause then you're like, oh crap, people are like gonna pay me for this. They expecting some good things out of this. So, but the only, I mean, it's, you put yourself out there, and even if I would have failed and things wouldn't have gone as well, if I wouldn't have stopped and I would have continued to speak, I eventually would have gotten my talk, like the talk, like the one where you're like, okay, I can do this. Because, everybody can believe in you. Your mentors, people can say good things about you, but like until you start believing it inside yourself, it won't have that impact,
Yes, that is 100% true. So on this, how you were kind of talking about your journey kind of started after you graduated from college. But if there was a person listening, like a high school student or like a freshman in college right now, and they wanted to pursue this type of career, like a career coach, like a leadership facilitator, a speaker, motivational youth speaker, they want to go into this type of industry.
Yeah.
What would how would you recommend them to like start? Would you recommend them to go to college, or just start out by themselves? Or
so if you're interested in being like a speaker facilitator for young people, I mean, I would say if you got a scholarship and you got college paid for, I would say go to college and then and then do what you're doing, like get involved with where you're doing facilitation right now with a nonprofit or with an organization. Link up with someone that has a program where you're doing it day in and day out. Because I mean, like speaking engagements, they come every once in a while, but if you can do something like where you did 5 days a week, you're literally speaking in front of people 5 days a week. I mean, imagine the reps in that. Like that's a lot. That's a lot more than anybody just going into speaking. And so I would say if you don't have a scholarship and you're gonna have to take out loans, I would say my recommendation would be that if this is something you really, really want to do, like you're like, I've tried it and I love it and I just need to gain the skills, then I would say I would not recommend people go to college for this, if they're going to have to pay for college. And I would just, I've said this to you before, like I would just find someone who'd be willing to, like, who has an immense amount of skill and has a good purpose behind it, and who would be willing to like mentor you and help you out and show you the ropes. And then your university is just following that person for free. You pay for your own stuff. I don't work part-time somewhere else, but, or full-time, but it allows you to, like to pay for your own things, to be able to go and shadow this person, work with this person, carry this person's bags, whatever it takes to get around that individual and learn from them. Because you've mentioned this, like you've learned a lot of things from me, but, I've learned a lot of things from Ernesto, from True. I mean, the immense amount of like skills that I've gained just by going with them and being around them and seeing them and then putting it into practice and then getting feedback from them. It's just been invaluable, like you can't recreate it. So that's what I would suggest. If you're in college, I would suggest, like as far as majoring, communications major would be great. Theater. I think theater would be great, which seems weird, but if I could go back to college, I'd probably like double major like in communications and theater because, one is you're on stage, you are presenting on stage, even though they're like lines, but they're like rehearsed lines where you're going to have to rehearse some of your talks. There's also the setup, the scene. like you're telling a story in theater, right? And there's different scenes to it. And instead of acting them out, like when you actually speak, you're almost like always telling a story, right? You're walking people through different scenes of the story. For facilitation, like just, it's great to like plan out what different actors are going to do and questions you're going to ask, when you facilitate, or when you're like, you set up, for all of our facilitation for activities, we set up like almost like you set up a scene, right? You put things everywhere where they need to be. You set up like the scene and what you're going to play in that scene. So I think theater would be fantastic. Communications, anything to do with like education and leadership, but the theater would be a big one.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like storytelling too. Like, when we speak, we have to tell stories and you have to connect.
Yeah, I mean, theater's all storytelling. It's, and you're getting those skills of how do you tell a good story? And how do you get everybody in their place to be able to deliver the story? I mean, if you think about this, that's what we do in Thrive, like, or any kind of facilitation. Like, everybody has their part, especially when you're working on a team. Like the summer camps. You have like your lead facilitators. You have some people that are on the side for certain things, but then there's some things that they're leading. But everybody needs to be on the same page. You need to have your schedule, your run of show, kind of like in theater. You need to know who's coming up and when they're coming up. I think, I mean, I wish somebody would have told me that before I went to college, because maybe I would have. But I mean, it would have been crazy. Like, if I told my parents I was going to do theater, they were like,
Drama.
what the heck?
Yeah, my mom still, to this day, doesn't know. Like, I tell her communications. Like, what, you talk? What are you going to do after college? That's what I want to. Like, with, like, immigrant parents, they're like, they want you to go to college. Yeah. And then if you go to college and you don't do like doctor, engineer, or something that they have heard of, or something that when you go out of college that you don't do full time, like a full time job. They're like, oh, like what are you doing?
What are you doing with your life? Yeah.
They're like,
yeah. I mean, you can't blame them. It's not. It's hard. I mean, that's the reason that I didn't pursue this as a career earlier, because I just couldn't see it. Like you can see an engineer at work, you can see a doctor, and you've seen people like it's like Santa Claus, like telling people about Santa Claus, but you've never seen Santa Claus, so how do you know if Santa Claus really exists? Yeah. And so I think it's just one of those career paths that it's definitely available. It's not as prominent. It's harder to get into. But it's at least here in the United States, like it's a real career. Yeah. Like I've been able to, I mean, it's been for me of the things that I've done. Like I work for Coca-Cola. I used to work for a foundation. Like financially, I've made more money from this than from the other things, so it's like a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope if there is someone out there wanting to be a speaker or a facilitator that has still in their mind, they're kind of scared, I hope you are listening to this. So I wanted to ask you this one last question about how does it feel? How does it feel to be a professional speaker, to be able to do what you do now? Because this is, I'm sure you have other goals too. You want to get your levels, or you want to come up with more keynotes and more, but you have a keynote and you're doing what you've always wanted to do. Like how does it feel to be a professional speaker?
It feels, it doesn't feel like I thought it was going to feel. Like, and I don't want to be a downer, but it's great. I love it. I'm very grateful for it. I didn't really think it was gonna happen. Like there was always a doubt in me that it was actually gonna happen full time. Like I probably wouldn't have actually done it full time if I wasn't pushed. Like. People are going to give me credit like, oh, you took the leap, but it was more of a pushed leap. But nevertheless, I did make the choice. I did make the decision to leave my job that was very comfortable and then try this out. And then, here we are with going on almost 5 years. And it does feel, I think, and this maybe not just be like for speaking, but like being self-employed, it does feel freeing. Yeah, it does feel very good to like not have to ask for permission, I don't know, like I remember like, hey, can I like take these days off over here? Like it has felt really well to just be like, well, I'm going to take those days off, or I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. Or I'm going to adjust my schedule, or, I'm not going to have meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays. I'm only going to have meetings Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays, or, I'm going to work 4 days a week this week. It is a cool privilege, but it has a lot of responsibilities, like you got to pay for your own health insurance. You got like, if you don't go out and hustle, you ain't getting that paycheck. So there's a lot more fear. But somebody once said, all of profit, I was like reading a business book and say, all profit comes from risks. Like all major profits come from risk. Like it's only the people that risk certain things that actually generate more income, more money, more, right? Because when I left my job, I was making like 60,000, benefits.
With like full insurance,
full insurance. I hadn't paid for healthcare in 7 years because it was so good. Like I mean, they had like insurance, but they paid for it. I didn't even pay for any health insurance. 401k was great. It was a great organization, a great foundation with a good mission, good people. And I remember I left, and I left, and I had got a contract with Thrive, but the contract was only going to pay me like 30,000, like just flat before like taxes were taken out. So really it was like 25,000.
Everything, like you got to do everything with that.
Right. I got to do, it's 45,000 total, but I was going to use 15 of that for the program to pay you and to pay other people. And then I was going to take 30,000. And I remember thinking like, man, that's like 60,000 to 30,000. That's not enough to pay my bills. So I was like, crap, I'm going to have to like make it like another 15,000 for me just to pay my bills, just to be back to where I was a little bit. And I was scared. I remember the day I left the foundation, I called my dad, and I was like, what the heck did I just do? Because my dad's self-employed. Like he has an own company. He's an electrical engineer in Mexico. And I was so scared. I was like, what did I just do? Like, why did I do that? I was like regretting it. Like once I turned in my key, and I was like, oh crap, this is real. Like I need to go out. I'm not going to, like, I was so scared. And he said, he kind of talked me down, and he's like, look, like, you're making the right choice, because even if it doesn't work out, at least you'll know, like, cause then otherwise you'll always wonder, like, you'll always be like, well, like, what would have happened? What if I would have actually taken the leap? Because nothing's guaranteed in life, And honestly, like the worst thing that would happen is I just go get a job.
Yeah.
Which is like the dumbest thing, but it's kind of like when we do the ropes course. So we do this summer camp where we take students up to this ropes course, and they go up like 30 feet, and they're attached to this what is it, like
harness,
like this harness, right? So they're very safe, like they're not falling, but they gotta climb, they gotta go from one end to the other on the rope. And if they fall, like they got the harness there, so they're not gonna die. But the fear is real, because you're just like, yeah, but still, like, what if I fall?
Yeah.
But it doesn't make. If you think about it logically, you're like, yeah, but you got your harness, so you're fine. Like nothing's gonna happen. And that's like what it was, like a fear, but it was also like, okay, well, the worst thing that could happen is I don't make it as a speaker, and then I just gotta go get a job, and then And then like that's not the worst thing in the world. It's like I got the harness, you know. I got a college education, so but luckily, you know, God has been good. I've been, I think one thing I have gotten a lot better in, not only just the speaking, but the last 4 years, you know, where I talked about the business side of it, I've like started enjoying that part, like the developing, you know, like basically like figuring out, all right, how can I run this like a real business, like if I was like the CEO of Microsoft or Google, you know, like running the business side of it, because I've just seen that so much. I think I really like believe that like you can be, you know, an average speaker, but if you have above average business skills, you can make pretty good money with this. You know, you can make an impact, but you can make an income as well. And most people don't focus on that. But no, I mean, honestly, so being a speaker just, it feels good. It does feel good to make an impact, to grow, to help other people grow. It helps you grow because I think some careers, like you could just chill and just relax and just kind of like take it easy. Like if you're, you know, I don't know. I mean, there's certain careers where you just really don't have to grow to make it happen in that career. In this career, like you got to continuously be growing. You can't just chill. You can't just like, this is not a career where you could just relax and just be like, well, I'm just going to coast, because you're literally teaching other people how to grow. And how dare you not be growing in your life and then trying to teach that to other people? Like it'll be, you know, a contradiction. You'll be a contradiction to other people. And I once heard the speaker, and he was talking about how people can't hear. I love this quote. People can't hear what you're saying. No, hold on. It was, oh God, what was it? It was like basically the essence of the quote was that if you're going to be, if you're living a different life than the one you're speaking, that people won't be able to hear what you're saying because of your actions. You know, like you can be the best speaker, but if your life isn't congruent with what you're saying, then they won't hear what you're saying, because they'll only see what you're doing.
Like if you're not practicing what you preach,
if you're
something
not,
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not practicing what you preach, but the way it was like, I wish I'm like forgetting it, but it was like people can't hear what you're saying because they're so like focused on what you're doing. Kind of, it was not exactly that way, but it was something like that. Like people can't hear what you're saying because they're more focused on what you're doing. And I really believe that's true. I think my goal right now as a speaker is not just to be a great speaker or to make, you know, a lot of money. I want to do both, actually, but why not? But you know what I want to be one of those types of individuals that, yeah, kills it on the stage, but then people come up to me and they meet me and they say, wow, you're actually a cooler dude off stage than even on stage. You know, like I thought you were cool then, because you know when you see a speaker, you're like, oh my God, they're amazing. It's like I've seen an artist or something like that, you know, and kids are like, oh, your life must be, you know, this way. And there's some speakers that I've met that they're amazing. They're like super amazing, but then you get to meet them and they're not really great people. They're not people that you'd like to hang out with. They're not very good character people. And then it's kind of lets you down, because you're like, it's like a hero that you meet and you're like, oh shoot, like you're actually not really like you're not actually doing the things you say on stage.
Yeah.
And then you meet other people that are great on stage as well. And then you meet them and you're like, man, you're actually better as a person than you even are as a speaker. You know, like you're an amazing speaker, but you're actually even better. Like you're more interesting. I think that I have that goal. I want to be that. I don't just want to be a good speaker. I want to be congruent with what my message is, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I've known you for a long time now, and I think that's kind of the way you are, right? Even if you don't see yourself that way, but
yeah,
like you like constantly changing things, improving things. Like when you give presentations at Thrive, like the first presentation, we listened to it. I feel like it was great, but in your mind you feel like, oh, like no, that's not good, and then you come up with another presentation the
Yeah.
other day.
Yeah,
So
constantly
I
improving.
like how your mind is always like just improving constantly.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just I think you have to be congruent. And not perfectly, like, you know, you're not going to be exactly how you are on stage, you know? Like, and you shouldn't be. Like, you're different. You're a little bit different at home than you are on stage or in front of students, but you can't be completely different. Like, you can't be living this other life and then be speaking about, you know, all these other good things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think just to have that integrity within yourself of like, I'm going to be a whole person, you know, and who I am on stage and who I am here. Like, they're all part of who I am, but I'm not going to be completely different to where people see my life and they're like, well, you're not really doing what you said you were doing, you know? And you know, one thing I know I'm finishing up here, but one thing I started thinking about is one thing that I really like about speaking that nobody ever told me about was speaking is very therapeutic. Like, being a speaker, like, you're almost doing therapy on yourself. Because a lot of times, especially if you're the type of speaker that uses, you know, maybe traumatizing times in your life, like, the more you speak about it and the more you actually find like there's actually beautiful things about some of the bad things in your life, you also you start to like heal some of those areas of your life. You know, like, a lot of times when I've spoken and I share about just maybe some, you know, traumatic things when you think about them, like being addicted to drugs, having a kid at 14 years old, you know, my mom being deported when I was, you know, about to be born. When you think about some of those things, or, you know, I've heard speakers, you know, talk about loss, like losing their parents. The more you relive something, but in an empowering state, you start to see the good in things. And that's something, and sometimes like I'll be down and then I'll go out and give a talk and then I'll just remember like, oh yeah, I did that. Like, I'll forget, you know, like we're so forgetful. Like, we overcome obstacles and then we're just like, bro, I can't overcome anything. Can't even overcome, you know, like waking up on time. Like, I was speaking to this group yesterday in California and I was telling them, you know, about being like a teenage father. And I was like, after the talk, I was like, oh, yeah, I did that. You know, like, I mean, with God's help, you know, through his grace, but I get like, how did I do that? Like, it almost seems like it wasn't me. Like, I was like, was that really me? Like, did that really, you know, was I able to overcome that challenge? And I was like, yeah, that was me, you know? And it almost like, I don't know, it's therapeutic. It's something I never heard anybody say. Nobody ever told me that, like, it might be therapeutic to be able to speak, you know, on stage, because you're reliving those moments, but then you're finding the beautiful things in those moments.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Well, now that I think about it, yeah. Because I feel like on when we come up with speeches, like, we have, like, when we were talking about the why, like, our why is kind of embedded on our, like, our main keynotes, you know?
Yeah.
And then every time we do it, we get reminded.
And you add things to the story, you know, like comedy. Like, when you were doing this last week, you were talking about the haunted house.
My friends going to scary acres.
You know, well, it was probably pretty scary. Like, it was a scary event for you.
Yeah.
But then in order to present it to the students, you added some comedy to it.
Yeah. Comedy.
Well, I mean, like, now when you start thinking about that story in your life, and even when you're not speaking, but when you're thinking about it, it'll be like, there'll be some funniness to it. Like, you'll see some of it because the way you described it to them, right? But I don't know if you would have found that comedy if you hadn't spoken it. Like, if you hadn't shared it with others, you know? Like, maybe, like, with your friends, you joke around a little bit, but now it's like, now there's comedy to that story, and you've added that component to it. Whereas before, it was just fear. It was just a story about you being scared, but now it's a funny story. And when you think about it, so it doesn't have as as negative thing about it, right? Like, it's just being scared is probably a negative experience for you. But now it's like, well, it was scary, but it's also funny now. So it's actually like kind of a funny, cool story. And it's actually a cool experience now, you know?
Yeah.
Like when I talk about with my son, right? Like when I told my mom that I was going to be a father, or I didn't tell her, when my girlfriend's mom told her. I mean, that was a horrible time. Like, it was really, really bad, you know, for me. Like, I'm, you know, now that I say it, like I put some comedy in it, but not even just comedy, but I see the beautiful things in it. I see how much my mom supported me and loved me through it. You know, I see how, I see the power of somebody supporting you and having your back, and how that can help you overcome anything. But in the actual moment, it was horrible. Like, I felt like my life was over. I literally felt like, I don't know how the heck I'm going to do this. Like, I was so overwhelmed with stress and fear. But now when I think about that, I don't think about it that way anymore. I think about it, it was a learning experience for me, you know? Or when I think about my son being born, like, that was a traumatic event. Like, I remember I cried, and it was just like it was a crazy day, the day my son was born. But I've added some things to it, which made me like, it's almost like you focus on different parts of the story and then you make it your own thing, right? So it's like, you know, you get to remember things the way that you want to remember them. I mean, not like making people up, but you add to it, right? You focus on certain parts of the story. 'Cause like, I remember when my son was born, you know, when I talk about the story, I talk about how the first thing I thought was, dang, this baby's ugly. You know, like, that literally was the first thing I thought. Like, I didn't tell anybody, but I was like, this baby looks like an alien, you know? But in that moment, I wasn't like, it wasn't a funny moment. It wasn't like, it was a good moment, but it was like also like, just like, it was a mix of emotions, you know? But when you speak, you get to author your story, you know, you get to see from your perspective, and maybe it's not like completely 100% accurate, you know, like, you're not lying, but like, if your parents probably remember things differently than the way you remember them, right? Or your brother remembers them, because everybody's gonna kind of have their own perspective on it. But you get to reshape those areas of your life, which I think are really beautiful, and have really helped me out, you know, just think about things in my life that, had I not been a speaker, I think I would have always maybe seen them in a negative way. But because I've spoken about them a lot, and seen them in a different way, and maybe presented them in a different way, I can kind of see the good in those situations.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a good thing about being a speaker. Like, that's the advantage, because that is not. I'm thinking about other jobs where you don't get to like remind yourself of the why, you know, of the why of what you're doing when you're in other areas.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, so the things, just to finish off here, yes, I'm grateful to be, like, to have accomplished one of my goals, you know, like one of my big goals. But I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And I think even more than just being a speaker, like, you know, just being like, I've accomplished that goal. I think the thing I really like about it is it really, like, being a speaker, it always confronts you with what are you doing to grow? What are you doing to expand? What are you doing to heal? What are you doing? Because you can't give what you don't got. You know, I think that was one of the first lessons that my mentor gave me. He said, you can only give to others what you have. And they'll only go as far as you're willing to go. They'll only go as far as you're willing to go. And so it really pushes you as a speaker to be like, not that you have to be perfect, but you're like, I'm only going to be able to make the impact, right? Like, and help others grow as much as I'm growing and making an impact in my own life, you know? And so it pushes you. I think when you get older, you can become complacent. especially if you're starting to make some money, if you got certain ways that you do your work and you're like, okay, I think I could survive pretty comfortably just doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I see people do that in certain jobs. And I've tried to do that in this job, but it doesn't allow me. Like, it doesn't let me. Like, it starts hurting the way that you can serve people if you're not growing, if you're not pursuing, if you're not, continuously. And so I would say to somebody, that's really looking into this as a career, it's like, are you the type of person that is on this continuous, like this constant and never ending improvement kind of, not that you have to be perfect, but like you're always trying to figure out, how do I grow? How do I get better so that I can help others grow and get better? Like, you got to have that kind of mentality instead of like, how do I just get to this point where I'm speaking and making a bunch of money and then just like stay there forever? Because I think some people say that, like, let me just get to like making $100,000 and speaking and then just like have a formula and do it. Mm-hmm. And you can do that, but I don't think you can stay there. I think you're going to have to improve. You're going to have to grow, but it's got to be a part of who you are. Like, you're the type of person that's constantly wanting to say, how can I get better? How can we refine? How can we start something new? Right? So I could share with other people.
So that kind of, I was going to go towards that area of the of the last, because we did the why, the how, and the what was kind of what you just said. So one of my final questions would be, do you think, like, because when you come up with your topic, like what did your topic, or what are you going to talk about? Like, what are you going to talk about as a speaker?
Yeah.
And that's like, you have to think about your previous, like what you have been through, and then kind of connect that with a story, and then project it as a lesson to the audience. Right. So my question is, like, does having a difficult like background with hardship lead to one being a speaker? Do you think?
I don't think it leads necessarily. I don't think you necessarily have to have a difficult background to be a great speaker or facilitator. So no, it helps, I think, to be a speaker, because you could use references from your own life, and there's nothing like things that you've experienced versus, sharing experiences from other people, because you weren't in their shoes, and so. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary, because I've heard great speakers that don't even talk about anything about their life, but they use examples, illustrations, and they're pretty powerful. So no. But I think if you do have challenges in your life, then you can use that. And I think it can give you more purpose. But no, I don't think it's a requirement. I'm thinking about like Coach Eric, and he's my best friend, so I could talk about him. I think me and him have had two different, times growing up. And not that I had, I think from the outside, people would say you probably had more obstacles, mainly because you created them, than maybe, your best friend growing up. But I felt like he found what he needed to be a pretty good facilitator. Found his niche. He cared deeply about students. I think that's the one thing. If you're like, can I make it, helping students, or, working with young people, or even just people in general, like, do you care about helping others? And I think that will help you more than having a difficult background.
All right. I think that is about it for the first ever Inspiring Talk past podcast. Well, you at one point you said capstone project. This is actually my capstone project.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope my professor's name is Dr. Toller. Dr. Toller, hello. If you got to the end of, I know it's a long podcast, but if you got to the end of it, hopefully you'll invite me someday to your class to speak to the students. Maybe when I'm older, like 30, 35. But this is the first podcast. This is how it goes, Coach. Thank you so much for being here.
It was
And I
fun.
hope if you were listening, you got to learn something new, because today we talked about like the 3 pillars of life, as this famous author and speaker likes to call the golden circle: the why, the how, and the what of being a public speaker, or being a professional speaker, or getting into the field of where you can serve others and constantly improve. And yeah, that is it. Thank you very much.